past 5 to 6 games at Vanderbilt. Kevin Stallings, I think, is one of the better coaches in the nation and definitely in the SEC. Just really does a great job of X's and O's and getting his guys to execute. So the thing you worry about when you play a Kevin Stallings coach team is just how well prepared they'll be in executing what they're going to do both offensively and defensively. Obviously, Odom is a talent, but the guy that you really concern yourself with is Damian Jones. Damian Jones got in early foul trouble against us. He really wasn't on the court much in the first half, but he's such a long physical presence both on the offensive and defensive end. So we'll have to find a way to guard all their sets. They have so many sets, and you can't walk through all their sets. What you have to do is you have to rely on your principles, so that'll be really important for us. And I'll imagine that they'll play a lot of zone against us, and I thought we got real stagnant in our game at Vanderbilt against their zone. And we got to find a way to push the ball versus the zone and have more of a free-flowing offense than just relying on our set plays versus the zone.
What can your guys kind of draw off last year's experience in the SEC tournament?
Well, the fact that they won a game was something they can go there and have some success, but you want your guys to do a little bit more than that than just win one game. And so our guys got to go in there with a positive mindset. I know it's hard to do that when you're on a losing streak like this, but we got to have a couple upbeat and short practices here and make sure our guys feel good going into it.
In the first game against Vanderbilt, they really neutralized Craig, with that zone. How does he need to maybe attack the basket more against that zone?
Well, I think the key is us getting stops on the defensive end and getting him out and trying to attack the zone before they get set up. I think that's where Chicken is best, is in the transition. And I thought that we just set it up too many times versus the zone rather than letting him just kind of be a free-flowing basketball player. So first key is getting stops, and second key is getting out in transition, hopefully being able to break that zone defense down before they have a chance to get set up. And then the other thing that's going to have to happen is some other guys are going to have to make some shots. Until guys make some shots, then there won't be any driving lanes for Chicken to drive the ball into. And I thought that we had some really good opportunities versus Vanderbilt in the first half. We just simply didn't score it.
Rick, there's been, I guess, if you look at the numbers, and there's a lot of negativity, whether it's the 13 games back-to-back. But what are some of the things that you're proud of in your first 2 seasons that you kind of hang your hat on?
Well, I don't know if you necessarily hang your hat on it, but I do think that when you talk about what the perception is of Mississippi State basketball and what people say about our program and coaches say about our program, it's just our guys are playing hard. And I think, a lot of people gauge, what your program is about and what the coaching staff is about when you're in a mire, in the slump that we're in, that we continue to play hard. I think the other thing is the fact that I think we got good kids on our team. But the next step for us is getting beyond that, and that's the whole key. You got to get beyond that, and you got to start having some results. And I think what will happen is, Michael, is once we get into a situation where we're on an even playing field with everybody else, where we have 12 to 13 scholarship players, I think it'll make a significant difference in our production.
I.J. Reed is actually a pretty good shooter.
Yeah, he really is. I think there's 2 things along with that, Gene. I think first and foremost, you're relying on the freshman to come in and be a guy who's a shooter for you, and then putting that upon his shoulders right away. And I think right now, IJ is just physically worn down. He's not a big, strong, physical kid to begin with, and so what needs to happen with IJ is he needs an off-season of strength and conditioning to get on par where he can continue now to have legs throughout the season. But I got every confidence in the world that IJ will be a really good shooter for us. It's just asking him to do that as a freshman where, it's everybody else is missing shots and you're incoming freshman. It's you got to make that shot. You got to make that shot, and having that pressure upon yourself there. I think it's a difficult situation for him.
Well, and follow up on that, are you going to try to, when Darrell Wilson was here, they would set up screens so he wasn't always the best guy, one-on-one, but they're going to set up screens. Is that something you're going to try to work on next year, and also emphasize to him to shoot a little bit more? Well,
we want him to be more of a scoring option, but he has to be comfortable with that. And I think the difference between a guy like Super Darrell Wilson and IJ is just a physical size. I think, Super Darrell had a little bit more size on him. We can shoot it over people, where IJ doesn't have that. to his advantage. But we're going to try to do some things to isolate him a little bit more, to get him some open shots. But it all boils down to, like, other guys have to be able to make shots too. Because, like, when you got one guy you focus on that's a shooter, it's pretty easy to make sure to kind of take that away.
I know you don't have it at every position on the floor, but how much is IJ being here and Jacoby being able to play this year amped up Bloodman's game?
Oh, I think the one thing, it's two things that we've never had here, and hopefully we'll have that next year, and I'm counting on us having it. One is competition, legitimate competition at every position. And I don't care what you're talking about, like, if you don't have that competition every day for minutes, then it's a problem. The second thing is I haven't had my best teacher, and that's the bench. You know, you need that. And you see the way Fred Thomas responded back after being benched there. You need that in your program. So those are the two things I think with us having, like, depth will make a key difference in our programs. The fact that we'll actually have competition at every playing position, and then also the fact that we'll have a teacher, which is the bench.
And Greg said Saturday that Deronye is not going to play anymore this year. Was there any discussion, future with that when he left, or that just kind of up in the air?
No, I haven't had any discussion further than that with Bear. I think there was two things. One is, like, his groin was bothering him somewhat, not to the point where he couldn't play, but just really when it's all said and done, Bear has not had a break at all. And so we all know that when it's all said and done, that Bear, if he has a chance to do something special, it's going to be on the football field rather than the basketball. And I wanted to make sure that he took the time in order to get ready for spring practice and get himself prepared for competition at that wide receiver position, because I know it's going to be a competitive deal. So, you know, I think more so than anything, Bear just needed a chance to, like, actually recover from playing full year of football and basketball to get ready for spring football.
You've got a three-point shooter coming in. I don't mean to harp on 3 points. That's obviously a weak point of this team right now. Maurice Dunlap. Is he going to try to come in early? Because you're probably going to count on him next year, not just for bench, but to actually play, aren't you?
Yeah, I mean, our goal is always to have our guys here. There's 2 summer sessions. The problem with the first summer session, Gene, is, like, most of those guys' graduation date is too late in order to get them in here in time for the first summer session. And that's all boils down to the NCAA Eligibility Center. All the paperwork that you have to go through as far as, like, having an actual graduation day, final transcripts, getting that process, and then getting admitted to the university in that short turnaround. So if we can, we try to have guys here for the first summer session. But with the way guys' graduation date is usually so late, especially here in the South, it's really hard to get them here in the first summer session. But we'll definitely have all of our incoming guys here for the second summer session. I think IJ was able to get his stuff done in time enough to get here for the first summer session. He was the only incoming guy that's been able to do that, though.
Well, Maurice, but you do expect him to try to get to play some next year.
I expect everybody we recruit to try to get to play some, you know. But I think with his ability to shoot the basketball, you like for him to be able to get on the court. But the thing that'll boil down to with him is just like the physical strength, you know. He'll have to be able to defend big, strong guys, and I don't know if he'll physically be able to do that yet. And I hope he's able to do that because we want to put him on the court because of his ability to shoot the basketball, but he also have to be able to defend his position too.
How healthy is Tevin going into the SEC tournament?
He's still not able to play at this point in time. He hasn't been in any sort of a full contact drills at all. He's been doing some things off on the side individually. He's been participating in some shooting drills, but anything as far as, like, cutting and moving versus another defender or him on offense, he hasn't been able to do that at all yet.
In coming here 2 years ago, you probably had a rough plan. How has that kind of lived up or not lived up to the expectations after year 2?
Well, I think the one thing that you just didn't know was about the injuries the first year, and so the injuries were a huge setback for us. And then just the second part of it this year, just not having a full roster because of some things that happened there. So, you know, you would hope that by this point in time, like, you would have a full roster, and so now you have development. I think the thing that's different for us is the fact that we have Falou and Travis sitting out, and so I get a chance to see those guys every day and get a chance to work with them every day. So you see the promise of those guys being in your program. So I really think you can't anticipate playing 2 years First year was 6 and 7 scholarship guys, and then your second year 7 and 8 scholarship guys. I don't think anybody ever anticipates that or plans for that. So I think that's the thing that's been a big drawback, the thing that's kind of been the unknown my first 2 years.
Regardless what happens Wednesday, because you don't know, what would you tell fans? Like, why should they be excited for the next year?
Well, I think first and foremost, we talked about this before, the fact that we'll have a full roster. And not just a full roster, but a full talented roster. You guys don't see it, but like Falou Endo is going to be a good player in the SEC. Travis Daniels is going to be a really good player in the SEC. Then I think you, along with the other guys coming in with Demetrius Houston, he'll be a guy that will give us size at that 3 position that we don't have. So with Travis Daniels and Demetrius Houston, we'll finally look like an SEC team as far as, like, instead of having a 6'3" guy guarding our 3-man, that's 6'7", 6'8", we'll have a 6'7", 6'8" guy guarding the 3-man. I think you'll have Maurice Dunlap coming in and giving us some shooting. But I think the biggest thing that you'll have excitement about is the fact that, like, now you'll have, in order for us to be good, you need good juniors and seniors on your basketball club. And I think with all those guys coming back in our program, we'll have good juniors, we'll have good seniors, and we'll have some depth and some competition. So I think there's things to be excited about the program. I know it's hard to see at times because you guys don't see what I see every day in practice with Travis and Falou, but I'm very excited about our future here.
I'm sure it's every game, but were there certain ones where you just looking like, man, if we had Falou or Travis, that may have been different. I know there were a lot of 20-point losses, but there were a few iffies. Were there some where that they helped more than others, or that you were wishing, man, if I could just kind of go to them?
Well, it really, Michael, and I'm not trying to like belittle the fact whether it's a 20-point game or a 5-point game. And when you go to the bench and like when somebody has 2 fouls and you're coming in with walk-on guys or coming in with a shorter guy, there's no reason why Colin Borkett or Rockwell Johnson should ever be guarded center in this league. And it's something we've been forced to do here for 2 straight years because you don't have another big body to turn to. So, hopefully that'll rectify that. And then our other thing is now, in all of our help defense, when we come with our help defense, we never come help with size. And it makes a huge difference. So now, instead of like, you coming over rotating with a guy that's 6'8", now with Falou, you're having a guy rotate in at 6'10". Instead of having a guy like, this Tyson Cunningham who's 6'2", come over and rotate and help, now you got a Travis Daniels or you got a Demetrius Houston who's 6'7", 6'8". So some of the things that we have a problem with as far as like our defensive rotations and our defensive rebounding, now you just having that size and availability of size makes a huge difference, I think.
This may be the same question, but kind of flipped. How has the lack of numbers affected your coaching? Affected you as a coach, and how has it changed you coaching since you don't have that bench?
Well, I think it's huge because, I don't think we have bad kids on our team at all. But every kid needs to be able to go to the bench and have the threat of being able to go to the bench and not playing or not starting. And so I think that's going to be a huge difference because we need that competition and we need that teacher, which is the bench. So I think it makes a huge difference as far as like the guy's perception. And like I said, I don't think our guys abuse this, but like when a guy comes out of the game, he knows he's going back in. When a guy doesn't play for a game, he knows he's going to eventually come back in and get into the rotation. We need the threat of a guy not being in the rotation. And in all likelihood, that's what happens in every program. And no one ever recruits anybody saying that that's going to be my 13th guy and he'll never play. No one does that. But in all actuality, there's about 9 guys that play. And there's about 4 guys who never see the court, who are 4 scholarship players that you recruited really hard to get into your institution. And that's just what you need. You need that competition.